Greetings and welcome to the Aquarians out there. This is Ron from Tarot of the Twin Sun. I am working through the platform of YouTube and the Twin Sun in order to bring forward messages of the future. And this is a reading for the month of September 2024 for the energy of Aquarius. Okay. So some of the major celestial events, I believe there's a transit of Venus combined with a new and full moon in the energy of Virgo as well as Pisces respectively. Let's see. There also is potentially Uranus in retrograde in the 4th house. So let's begin with that. So when it comes to your domicile, your place of home, there's something about certain relations, heady relations with others, that speaks for a need or a desire for independence. There's a chance to relocate. There also is a chance to sort of figure out the stability, to realign the neural grid when it comes to your inner world in order to play off of others, their minds, their mindset, their minutiae, their neural capacities, okay? And to come up with a way of transformation, okay, that accesses primarily 4th house, Uranus in retrograde. It moves back from the energy of Gemini into Taurus, okay? So it activates the 4th house for you in particular, the IC. And that's going to reward you in terms of bringing forward a fruitful spiritual way of making money, okay? And it does so by checking your actions, okay? Making sure that they're opening up the right gateways, the right keys. And certainly there's something about doorways that are going to be very important. Doorways of the mind, doorways of perception, doorways, physical doorways, and their vastu. Okay, this has to do with orientation of how to get out of a way of thinking, how to get out of a way of thinking when it comes to the friction that it produces with others, okay? And essentially coming into a transformation of wealth. Excuse me, this is spiritual wealth, by the way, and it activates a great deal of transformation when it comes to your love life. Venus conjunct Uranus as well as the South Node. And Vesta. So you will be rewarded in terms of transformation. There is definitely a spiritual wealth here. It ties to the 2nd house, spiritual family. Okay, spiritual home. And it allows for independence. Primarily, it allows for independence. Now, when it comes to the new moon's energy for this month, which is the primary focus of this reading, a stimulation of a new moon, that is the sun and moon conjunct, opening a new chapter in the energy of Virgo, stimulates your 7th and 8th cusp. Okay, now it depends on which degree of Aquarius you would have your placement. Any placement will do, including ascendant, sun, moon, etc. There is a possibility of relations, okay, relations that are dictated by this new moon through the energy of Mercury, because the dispositor of Virgo is Mercury, of course. So your 7th house, 8th house cusp, the dispositor is Mercury. Now there is a chance to transform or really sort of get to the end of one side, okay, to tip over to the other. There's an extreme energy here that stimulates relationships, that transformational relationships, shared energy in terms of your relation to others, okay? And it stimulates a very spiritual thing, because if you count the houses, the principle of Bhavam, from the 7th to the 8th cusp to basically the dispositor of Virgo, it turns out to be Mercury here, okay, in Leo. And it stimulates, once again, certain relationships that help you to provide friction with your inner world, your spiritual house of moksha, okay, of freedom, of liberation. And it produces the effect of great wealth for you. Once again, this is a time for great wealth, and it's a type of wealth that is not traditional. It's very spiritual. The spiritual wealth of the ages, relics, spiritual relics, and being able to use those gifts for the embetterment and transition of others. Okay, Aquarians are always geared towards the future. They honor Rahu, Saturn, heavily Saturn as well, Uranus. So those are all sort of going to help you in terms of this type of attunement. It's like an atonement, becoming at one with something when it comes to relationships, and the natural sort of friction or independence that you generate in terms of your own acquisition of spiritual wealth will become very clear this month. It provides you a sense of self. There's something about yourself in terms of your actions, your mind, as well as your self-expression that is perfected through the energy of Virgo, through the skillful use of talents, okay? These talents will be in opposition to Saturn in retrograde in Pisces, and it will point to the finger of God, that being your ascendant, Pars Fortune as well, the North Node, and Chiron in retrograde. So what does that mean? It means that there's something about this new moon that stimulates old structures, or structures that are old paradigms, or old structures, things that are meant to be in terms of a spiritual attunement, okay? And it allows you to generate the right mindset. Venus and Mercury as the yod formation from this opposition as well, fortune and desire in terms of the healing art particularly. So there's a skill set here that is activated with the new moon that produces the effect of generating wealth and desires around wealth that have to do with the dying out of old paradigms. It's a paradigm shift, and those paradigms can be anything from grand narratives of biologic proportion, family, having to do with family or spiritual family, something like that, and transforming through the auspices of skillful gifts, skills, a talent, a skill set that is stimulated in relationships that are transforming during this time period. Okay, so there's a reworking of how you deal with the other. In particular, it is stimulating a Venusian capacity of Virgo, so the divine feminine and the healing art comes through big time this month, and it allows for gifts to emerge, clarity of mind, all of this, but also challenges when it comes to how to express this, how to reasonably express this in some sort of way to your relationships. Be careful of romances. They will bring a lot of trouble and challenges, especially the 5th house, Mars and Jupiter in Gemini and Cancer respectively, or mostly in Gemini, that will stimulate these connections. So it's kind of a hands-off when it comes to romance, but when it comes to spiritual attunement, it's definitely here. Okay. Now, your ruler Saturn is in retrograde in the 1st and 2nd house cusp for you in particular. If we're to take 15 degrees as the ascendant, or any planetary placement, and we apply Saturn, it activates and stimulates basically the 1st and the 2nd house, 1st and 2nd houses. So it becomes very prudent for you to try to define yourself in terms of your relationships, see the friction that occurs there, see the skill talents that emerge from those situations, and see a way to perfection. Okay, this is perfection of your mind, and the mind can hold gifts or talents, a spiritual treasure that will help you to transform this type of energy. Okay. That's what I see. There's a way to define yourself through this time period, okay, and it will bring the rewards of a latent Saturn. The rewards will come much further down the line in terms of timelines. So that's what I can offer to you for this month. I do wish you well. Take care. Greetings and welcome to the energy of Pisces. This is Ron from Tarot of the Twin Sun. This is for a reading, a prognosis for the month of September 2023. And basically, we're looking into the future to ascertain what would occur for any placements that are within the energy of Pisces. Okay? So some of the major transits, particularly with the moon in particular, is an activation of a new moon in Virgo, as well a full moon in Pisces, and on top of that, there's also a possibility of a lunar eclipse also in Pisces. New moon Virgo, full moon Pisces as well. Uranus on the first, Uranus is in retrograde. Okay, so it's going to be an interesting month in terms of it. We're moving over to Libra season. Now, firstly, this is interesting because on the ascendant, on the cusp of Pisces, is basically Saturn retrograde. So Saturn retrograde, and there's an accentuation of that with the square in Jupiter. Okay, so this celestial event, okay, it harkens back to 2020 as well. There's something about the two great teachers of the Zodiac, the two great teachers in the sky, Saturn being retrograde in Pisces, that squares Jupiter, okay, and it's a lasting effect in terms of the ascendant as well as your fourth house. So there's sort of an inner conflict between time and wisdom, and it affects you on a very personal level. Especially if you have Sun or Ascendant or Moon in Pisces. And essentially, what it does is activates certain relationships with your outer world, wherein on the 3rd, the new moon will activate your 7th house, okay, which is in the cusp of Virgo. And what does that do? Well, it stimulates a very interesting formation, double the odd formations, activating Venus in the 7th house as well, Mercury in the 6th, primarily. And that allows you to go into relationships and figure out the ideals of those relationships, also how you identify in terms of your own mind, and identifying it as a sense of, or bringing light or illumination from the new moon as a sense of a display of ego, okay, Mercury and Leo. And the interesting thing is that it stimulates, okay, certain things where you can be supported by your friend circle or by your community. With Uranus in retrograde, that transit on the 1st of the month stimulates the 11th, the 1st, and the 7th houses. Okay, so Venus gets glorified here. There's something about your relationships where the values therein, especially karmic relationships, the values therein free up a certain block in terms of your goals, your aspirations, ambitions. There's a very key signature here of a transformation, okay, that is represented through Pluto in retrograde in the energy of in the energy of Capricorn, on the cusp of Capricorn and Aquarius. Okay, this retrograde action promotes some sort of transformation, and it's a very fundamental one, okay, stimulating the two great teachers to move into action and put you into situations or relationships that are quite difficult, but it's supposed to promote a sense of work or perfection in some sort of way when it comes to you dealing with others, and it reinforces the body, the integrity of the body, okay, the integrity of your own self-expression, how you are perceived by others, in generally speaking, a positive way, generally speaking. This is a time to work with communities, to work with and stimulate communities that are grounding, that need stability. It's very interesting because Pluto in retrograde as well as Uranus in retrograde stimulate your 11th and 3rd houses. These are the houses of desire, the houses of karma, and the houses of the mind. So basically there's an intellectual capacity for you to define yourself, okay, your enigmatic self with these three retrograde planets, including Neptune. So it's Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus in retrograde. It stimulates some sort of self-transformation, okay, something that you would desire in terms of purifying your own inner world, okay. There's going to be contention with others, especially others in the home, in your home environment, if you're living with other people. Okay, so the dispositor of Pisces, Neptune, is interesting. It's basically in your 1st house, could be 2nd house for some, lesser degrees Pisceans, and basically this is a time of deep and inner reflection, and a time for you to define yourself through how you relate with others in relation to your home. And you might find yourself retreating in some sort of way to find the grounding, to go back, okay, to go back and to define your goals, to define your ambitions, to define your desires, and to check those in some sort of way. Generally speaking, I would say it's not the best of times in terms of global affairs, especially the two great teachers of the sky are in contention. That is Saturn and Jupiter. And once again, it's a really good time to sort of figure out those connections that are most relevant, that are most conducive to sort of creating the inner world that you would so easily protect in a way, and how that inner world works with others in order to produce a sense of self, okay, self-representation. So now is a good time, if you're going to a hermit mode, to go into systems of knowledge, to start learning something, to also work with the internet or algorithms, intelligences online, in order to ascertain your own representation throughout media, for example, social media, to go through some sort of like cleaning or purifying mode in terms of that. Okay, so that's one tidbit of advice. When it comes to dealing with others, on the 3rd, the new moon activates Virgo in energy, and Mercury, which is the dispositor of Virgo, is currently in the 6th house in Leo. So when this new moon occurs, there is a chance to work on obstacles or blocks that you may have had, and especially when it comes to manifesting wealth or independent wealth, creative wealth, and to help find the path through how you relate to others. It's not that you're comparing yourself to others, but others can be the sort of anchor or the sort of media point, the middle point, where you can bounce off ideas, where you can find ways to reflect or relate to the common good, if there is such a thing, a common good or a collective conscious. And it will produce the effect of basically clearing out obstacles when it comes to work and manifestation. in a way, the new moon, it does stimulate some sort of 12th house type of energy. There's a possibility of dissolution of work. There's a possibility of dissolution of blocks when it comes to that as well. So work may be a block in some sort of way, especially when trying to come from independent sort of venture. Okay. Let's see. Mercury. So there is a chance to sort of stabilize in terms of this time period. For one thing, and I'm not a medical astrologer, but I could offer some sort of mystical advice in terms of grounding. Treat your body much like a temple that is old, that is in need of reformation or reconstruction in some sort of way. This is the time to do it. The hands of Virgo will provide, through the new moon's energy, a way to provide support in terms of your self well-being. Okay, so yeah, those are some of the messages that need to come through, at least for this month. Hopefully that has helped, my dear Pisceans. Hang in there. Take care now. Bye-bye. Greetings and welcome to the energy of Aries. The reading we're doing today is a prognosis for the month of September 2024, and we're looking into that month to particularly see the cycles of the moon. And the first thing that comes to mind is the new moon in Virgo, which activates the 6th house. Okay. So new moons are about new beginnings, of course. There also is a time for reflection, deep reflection in terms of the moon as a mirror technology to absorb light and to reflect it. It's one of the, well, it's the closest celestial body, if you don't count satellites. It is a satellite body. And during that time period, the 6th house is activated for you. This is especially for Aries ascendant. You can use any planetary placement, including the ascendant, for this reading. So we're going to get started with that. So on the 3rd of September 2024, there are activations that occur in the 6th house, particularly Virgo's energy. Now, the dispositor of that house, which is, of course, Mercury, will be 12 houses away from the new moon's energy. So in a way, the 12th house will be activated at the same time. And you have a stellium here, at least according to the transit chart, that activates the 12th house. And Saturn's energy, which is in direct square with Jupiter, is going to highlight something in terms of connections that you make in terms of work, but also of a hidden teacher here, Saturn in retrograde in Pisces. So it's a very interesting thing because it allows you to actually access the spiritual realm and any blocks that are coming there. The 6th house is the Dusthana house, at least according to Vedic understanding. And with that, there is something about daily rituals as well as your habits. It has to do with work habits that can go through a type of transformation when the two great teachers come into contention. It does lead to some sort of reward, mostly the activation of the 12th Neptune in retrograde and the 10th house. There's a transformation in terms of relationships, okay, that's activated with a stellium of the South Node, Lilith, and Venus conjunct Vesta. Okay, that is directly in your descendant or the 6th house. Now, this is like about working relationships, cutting out obstacles when it comes to dealing with others, and being rewarded with the mystical aspect of the trine energy that is being activated. Okay, so second house becomes rewarded if you can go through this period of challenge. Okay, with Jupiter and Saturn in contention, and then address the new moon's energy, there's a small window here of pushing forward rewards that stimulate your career, your money, your finances. Okay, this is a transformation with Uranus in retrograde in Taurus, okay, which basically accesses your finances, allows you to be more clear with your path, your career, and all of that, and any transformations that need to occur to that. Listen to well, the voice of God or messages from the infinite when it comes to that, because the desires to bring fortune and to awaken latent dreams or new structures are very much here. And because Jupiter and Saturn are working their magic over time, there will be a reward, and the reward comes through this gateway of the new moon's energy. It could be that you have maybe one or two friends that will challenge you, especially when it comes to work situations, that kind of shows a block in terms of your real progression. The real progression is in the 10th, 12th, and something of the 6th house. So Venus comes to wake up the transformative planets of Pluto as well as Neptune, both in retrograde. And there's something very slowly coming on the horizon in terms of wealth during a time of extreme chaos, okay? Chaos when it comes to the reality and the pragmatism of another Venusian house, the house of Taurus, which has Uranus in retrograde. And basically there is this interesting kite formation that is defined through sextiles, and also pushes forward the great trine of the 2, the 6, and the 10th house. Okay, so what does that mean for you? Basically, there is a chance to find a creative way that will stimulate a transformation of karmic flow for the energy of Aries and bring in a significant amount of wealth. Right now, if there is a block to that, it's because of the ambiguous structures of your life. What constitutes the ending of something, let's say? If there's a sense of an ending, why hasn't that chapter closed yet? Saturn in retrograde and Jupiter are here to close that portal in some sort of way. And it will challenge you about your path of work and realities in terms of how you work with others, or even friction with siblings or friends, your most immediate neighborhood, all of that. Okay, currently we're going through Mercury in retrograde. It's not going to get any easier in the coming month. Mercury is at a square with Uranus in retrograde, and that means that Mercury in Leo comes into square in terms of your finances with Uranus in retrograde and the energy of Taurus. What does that mean? It means that there is a chance to access a new pathway once again that has to do with this block and the release of that block. Okay, transformation is indicated in the grander scheme, and it's not until the slow movers of Saturn and Jupiter relate in order to bring forward that latent change. Okay, so hopefully that is somewhat of a clear prognosis for the movies. Do you take care of yourself, my dear Arians? Thank you. Bye-bye. Greetings and welcome to my dear Taurians out there. This is Ron from Tarot of the Twin Sun. This is a prognosis for the reading of a reading for the energy of Taurus in the month of September 2024. So it's a prognosis. If you're watching this in August, look for any Taurian placements that you have, any planets or the ascendant, any of that, and apply it accordingly. So I'm reading for the ascendant now. There's an activation of houses, particularly Venus. Okay. There are blessings from Venus, as there's a trine activation of your 5, 9, and 1st houses. Okay, with this triangle formation, basically, the path of Dharma, at least from a Western perspective, opens up for Taurus. Okay, and it is definitely an activation of Venus and Vesta. in your 5th house. Now, when it comes to relationships, and also relationships that are designed to teach a lesson of Dharma. Dharma basically is correct path, or path aligned with ascension or the light, God consciousness, all of that. This is an auspicious time where the new moon, okay, that's a sun and moon conjunct in your 5th house, grazes over the 5th house and blesses all of that, activating a triangle and a kite formation. So we have not only trines, but these sextile energies from the 9th to the 11th to the 1st houses. So something about the dreams, the aspirations, your desires become manifest, okay? Bringing an interesting thing where things come to head with the 11th and 2nd houses, okay? What does that mean? So basically, there's a stimulation of a path of Dharma. From it, you are able to work with the impressions of a collective culture or any sort of technological innovations within that culture, social networks, technologies of the future, artificial intelligence, algorithms. This is like a science emerging to sort of realign you with a certain path here, and it has to do with Dharma. Okay. The interesting thing is that the type of Dharma that is being activated now, it's in the triplicity of Earth, naturally. The 1st, the 5th, and the 9th houses, which are ruled by fire signs, are activating this dharmic kite formation, as well, the dharmic triangle formation. And what does it do? Well, it stimulates in the 9th house Pluto in retrograde in Capricorn's energy, and also it stimulates in your ascendant the retrograde of Uranus. And basically this time, this transit, this period of September, especially from the new moon, is an activation of this type of realignment. Now, when it comes to your need to be independent and generate your own wealth, it is still impressed by the sort of illusion that you have control over the collective. So any need to identify with romances or your creative capacities to bolster a sense of identity that isn't serving you in terms of your ego will be sort of challenged for the time being. Your 2nd house is being very challenged. That means your stability, your idea for expanding your actions to encompass the right way of doing things in some sort of way is being challenged, okay? The new moon in Virgo stimulates for you, at least it stimulates on a collective level, a very spiritual time, because the new moon is basically the 2nd house, but also the 12th house, in terms of away from Mercury. So Mercury is sitting in the 12th house for the new moon's energy in Virgo, and that sort of puts you into a place of crisis when it comes to identifying what your inner world is, where your home is, all of that. Trying to access a sort of logic behind that is going to be very much intended for, especially on a collective level. So Mercury, which has gone retrograde in the previous month, is then direct, and it's in the energy of Leo. And with Mercury and Leo, there is a strong need to express oneself in terms of how you would want to be perceived as someone who's very stable. But with it squaring Uranus in retrograde, in these times of instability, especially when it comes to your own self-reflection, when it comes to the context of a greater sort of social economy, okay, maybe coming into contention for the time being. Stability is really hard to find, and with your stability linked directly to the energy of Mercury, okay, it stimulates a time of even more instability in order to figure out what can come out of it, okay? So yes, you're being blessed in terms of, trying to assert yourself in a spiritual way and align yourself to a path of dharma. But at the same time, the systems around you of stability are very hard to define in terms of like long-term commitments or relationships that are going under duress, romances that are going under duress, and even your own creative capacities are stimulated in such a way that it becomes hard to sort of handle or grasp what it is you truly want, at least in terms of your desires, your manifestations of the 11th house, Neptune in retrograde, in the energy of Pisces. So it's an interesting thing what's going on now. Primarily, most of the oppositions will have to do with trying to find a way to be independent, people wanting to work for themselves, be independently free off the grid. All of that is part of the process. Those desires being instilled with a sort of collective vision, downloads from the Akash, downloads from some other place. In order to stabilize those visions, you have to look to yourself and become very practical. I see no blocks in terms of the 6th house. You will be rewarded in terms of the great benefactors, Saturn and Jupiter, which are coming into a square. It's a hard square, illuminating your 2nd and 11th houses. So trying to come up with like the right vision, the right way of seeing things in terms of stability, which is coming under duress, under the affliction of Mars and Jupiter square Saturn. It's very difficult to sort of constitute or live out certain dreams at this time. Try to check which ones are yours. If you're being fed social media and like being told to think a certain way about how to be unique and individualistic, and a child of like a certain way of doing things, completely free from society, make sure to check those and to let this transit sort of eventually pass. Saturn retrograde and Jupiter squaring up. Okay, so this square still is active this month, and it's very difficult to find the stability that you need. The teachers have to work together in order for that to happen. There will be rewards in the future, but for now, watch out for the need to be totally independent. Try to focus on trying to find a way towards stability. Align yourself. This especially if you're unemployed, or like you're searching for employment, or like a career change or something like that. This is the time to essentially come into the right way of doing things correctly, coming at things correctly. With Pluto in retrograde and Uranus in retrograde, there is a great chance that you can learn very, very key truths that will help you define your own personal philosophy and how you can resonate with that in the future. Okay, when it comes to work and manifesting like the right path, the right way of doing things. Okay, so the gravity is shifting, the Earth is turning, and there definitely is a chance to sort of realign geometrically or geomantically to the design of the infinite. All right, so hopefully that helps. Take care. Bye-bye. Hi there. Greetings and welcome to the energy of Gemini. For anyone who has any planetary celestial body linked to the energy of Gemini, that is a planet within Gemini or potentially the ascendant. Most probably, if you know your time of birth, there is a chance to basically figure out your ascendant. And there are ways, in case you don't know the exact minute, to actually use rectification, a system of a technology that's basically used to define your time of birth, your exact time of birth. It's very important to know the ascendant. So Gemini, welcome. We are looking at the month of September 2024. This is a prognosis for that month. In particular, we are looking at a transit of the Sun and Moon conjunct in the energy of Virgo, stimulating your 4th house. That's a new moon energy, so it's a new moon reading in terms of manifesting on the axis of Virgo and Pisces. There will be a Pisces full moon eventually activating your MC within the month. So it's an interesting thing. Mostly there's an opposition here, as well as a square. Okay, that stimulates kind of your first house. So basically, there's a need to find oneself in terms of the path of Virgo and Pisces. It's a very interesting path that pushes forward your IC and MC, the fourth and the 10th axis. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, it's going to be interesting because the new moon opposes Saturn retrograde in Pisces, and furthermore, it stimulates the square with Jupiter. So the two teachers of the Zodiac, Jupiter and Saturn's in retrograde, are going to be squaring up in your 10th house. There is a challenge to your path, a challenge to your karma, to address karmas, to free up these karmas with the outside world, okay, by going within. So it's kind of like an inner world that manifests in terms of your outer world. As within, so without. There's a possibility of really coming and aligning to the path of the hermit, okay? That is taking an isolated way, being very reflective, using your inner light to provide a sense of what to work out in terms of anything that you've bound to, that you're spellbound to in the outer world. And the outer world is very hard to define currently. Saturn retrograde in Pisces as well, somewhat conjunct the North Node, and Neptune in retrograde. Now, these retrograde planets squaring up to Jupiter and Mars, it's somewhat difficult to do the right actions. The multiplicity and the mutability of Gemini, okay, that is your energy, is the ability to use technologies that kind of work with the psychology of the other, the system of the other, okay, the spirituality of the other. There's a very spiritual calling for Gemini, especially Gemini ascendants, to come into a path of working with invisible structures, invisible cities, invisible systems of illusion, systems of Maya, and to weave your own inner world and perfect it in some sort of way during the new moon transit. Okay, so you would have to go deeply within in order to find out what is without. Okay, Jupiter is on your ascendant as well as Mars. There's a very strong tendency with Mars fortune to create the meaningful relationships. Now we're switching over to the positive side of the reading. Meaningful relationships with your community, okay, with your brothers and sisters, okay. And it is stimulated by your ruler, Mercury, which is posited in the third house for this reading for the month of September. Basically, there's going to be positive friends, at least one friend who can lead you in some sort of way. Their actions, this brother, this sister, their personage is very much leading the way, okay. It stimulates an interesting thing. They will challenge you in a certain way and activate the 8th, the 10th, and the 12th houses, bringing forward this kite-like energy and a trine that is forming in your 4th, 8th, and 12th house. There is a way or a path of moksha. Moksha is spiritual liberation for this month, okay, and it has to do with addressing transformations, addressing the sort of craziness and the chaos. It's like you have to embrace the chaos to figure out the change that's coming. It's not the easiest of months for most zodiac signs, but in particular, it stimulates basically the triplicity of water for you. So a lot of your blessings will come from water. It will not be divined in the earth. It will come through or fire, or air. It will come through water, the element of water. So water is a very good thing for you when it comes to finding liberation from the wheel, okay, from the challenges of the zodiac transit. And the good thing is that, let's see, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a time for creativity. Your creative efforts will definitely be rewarded in terms of bringing you a sense of this liberation. The fourth, let's see. Let's see. So one thing you can do is to take the first step. If someone is guiding you in terms of a brother or sister or a friend or someone that you're very familiar with that can lead you in terms of finding this freedom, okay, they can lead you and they will help you to generate some sort of income. Okay, the new moon stimulates a time of work, especially working from home or working on the inner world in order to produce certain results. When it comes to your work, it's very difficult because Gemini ascendants especially, they generally sort of work mystically. There's something about their 10th house that is activated right now that has to do with themes of unemployment, okay, and work structures not being well defined. God will provide is the answer. The higher form consciousness will provide. The universe, whatever you would tend to call it, will provide in terms of bringing forward a system that you can bounce off your privacy with in order to bring forward certain results. Now, one thing that I know for sure is that with the age of social media and technological innovations now, privacy is becoming more and more something that is not honored, something that is constantly sort of in need of boundary reformation. So one thing you can do is to monitor your algorithms, to sort of tailor them, especially when it comes to social media, in order to attain a level of dignified boundaries, okay, boundaries of space that are honored, and to sort of do that with intention, okay, at least for this month. Let's see here. One of the major blocks is freeing up some of the karmas when it comes to work, anything that has to do with work. With Neptune and Saturn retrograde in the energy of Pisces, your 10th house, and the desires of Rahu, the North Node in Aries, also in your 10th house. There is a challenge to free up, essentially, blocks in work, blocks in your career. And you have to remember that respect, honor, dignity, and grace, they're all sort of linked when it comes to correcting or like tuning in, getting into the right path, okay, for this month. Hopefully that's been somewhat clear. I've been having difficulty being eloquent or being sort of elucidating in terms of my voice patterns, but hopefully that comes as something of an esoteric look into this month. There is a chance for those of you who seek love to encounter that from this triangle. Okay, primarily the 4th, 8th, and 12th. So Venus and Vesta and Lilith are working together along with the South Node to free up very dark karmas when it comes to transformation in love. Spiritual love is on the horizon when it comes to this. Okay, so hopefully this has been something of a good prognosis. I do wish you well. Thank you. Bye-bye. Greetings and welcome to my dear Cancerians out there, Cancer. This is a reading and a prognosis for the month of September 2023. Particularly, it's a snapshot reading for the transits of the new moon, the transit of the new moon on the 3rd of September 2024. Did I say 23 before? No, I'm at 24. So, yes, the ruler of Cancer is the moon, and there's an activation here in the 2nd house. It forms up a T-square between Jupiter and the 9th house. Jupiter in the cusp of the 11th and 12th, more the 12th house and the 9th house. Okay. And that kind of also squares up with the energy of Saturn. So basically, this new moon energy, and that's when the sun and moon are conjunct, okay, in the energy of Virgo, stimulates your second house. So this reading is primarily for the Cancer ascendant, but you can also take any planetary position and apply it here accordingly. With an activation of the second house, the triplicity of Earth is very much stimulated, for one thing, and it brings forward something about a sort of block to family, a block to your most immediate reality, your commitments, your finances. Okay. It's sort of a challenge in terms of trying to bring in the right nutrients or the right kind of spiritual undertones to that in which you take in. This is about like processing information. This is about processing also food. Once again, trying to find the nutrients, retaining those nutrients and sort of expelling out the waste. It's a time of purging, primarily with this new moon. Okay, and it stimulates your second house. So there's a realignment here, primarily with spiritual communities. It has to do also with higher education, the 9th house and the 12th house, the deep spiritualism that is activated. And with Jupiter and Mars conjunct, squaring the new moon's energy, there's a lesson here. And the second house, well, actually, it's more like the 12th house is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 houses away. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there's something about your goals, your ambitions that are coming through the other side. Okay, so Jupiter represents an ascended being, a master, a guide, a spiritual guide. Okay, Jupiter is guru, it's teacher, it's master. And it's in the energy of Gemini in the 12th house. 12th house is hidden systems, okay? And this type of algorithm or this guide sort of challenges a new chapter of bringing forward your daily routine, your wealth, your most immediate resources, your relation to the most immediate environment, okay, your physical environment. And this stimulates a sort of an overtone of the teachers, Saturn in retrograde, square Jupiter, and it brings forward a difficult time where you have to figure out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, how to change your desires, your dreams, your plans. This is a time for challenging that and making sure that when it comes to your most practical way of investing in yourself, okay, that's second house energy in Virgo, investing in yourself and your daily routine so that there is a type of sustenance there, a sustain of these teachings. That, or you can identify with the common delusion of the collective conscious, common factors, systemic mind control that is occurring and affecting, how one would see their own sense of stability or their own practicalities. And there's an element of perfection in this, okay? Eventually there will be a reward in terms of the lessons granted with this great square between Jupiter and Saturn. And it will be rewarded through also the forward movement of Neptune, okay, in Pisces, currently in retrograde. So there are a number of retrograde energies, particularly I believe on the 1st of this month, Uranus also is in retrograde in Taurus. Okay, so on a collective level, generally speaking, people are looking abroad or looking into the Akash or to spiritualism, to a mystical path, looking for teachers in order to provide them with a reason why. Why is it so hard to, let's say, maintain an investment, maintain a sense of commitment to a type of work style? Okay, and these are questions that on a collective level, but on you personally, on a familiar level, that you can find relativity in. Okay, for one thing. Now let's switch over to the positive. There are certain things about relationships with others that will bring in a sense of fortune. Fortune is directly on the ascendant of Cancer in 15 degrees of Cancer. So this is a fortunate time for you to define yourself according to the complexion of this Cancerian placement. Okay. Pars fortune does smile. It's not adversely affected right now, but there are certain relationships activating a mystical trine, as well as a sextile combination that activates your 3rd, 7th, 9th, and 11th houses. Okay. Now, the 3, 7, and 11 are houses of desire, houses of the mind, houses of the sword. Okay. And these houses are forged through the metal of your mind, through how much you can deal with others, your community, excuse me, the world at large, and beyond, how you can deal with people galactically. And to tap into sort of the lesson of this almost famished, chaotic idea of stability that is impressed upon us on a societal level, where you can bounce off your ideas with brothers or sisters, with brotherhoods or sisterhoods, with others in terms of this great change. Okay, it's a sea change, Pluto in retrograde into Capricorn, moving forward again in your 7th house in the energy of Aquarius. This stimulates working with other people in order to promote dreams of an old age, leading to a path of healing and desires that should produce a sense of career or a proper path work for you. Okay, especially for healers out there, this is a time to reach out to others and to make this type of knowledge of the systemic control of unwanted algorithms and programs that can be reversed. And you can bounce off these ideas with people, to talk with them, to also relate with them, you know, in a mode of compassion, in a mode of also intellectual integrity. Okay, this is truth saying. Truth comes during this time period, during a time of great duress, where your own stability is like almost misled by like a change of heart from a guru, or a change from one guru to another, from one teacher to another. So in terms of the information flow, truth will reside in your communion with others, as opposed to specific others. By the way, these are like your close network, or people who are part of your tribe, let's say. And there's a chance to do very positive work there, and you'll be rewarded in terms of relationships that are meaningful. Okay, so this is just a small look into September. Your ruler is combusts the sun. The sun combusts the energy of the moon and creates the new moon, and it eventually moves. This new moon moves eventually to conjunct with excuse me, to conjunct with Saturn in retrograde in the energy of Pisces. It's important to weed out and to understand some of the shifting structures, and to note that structures can only shift as much as their foundations will let them. This has to do with religion, but also a number of other systems that are of the old paradigm of the Piscean age. Oh, okay. So hopefully that helps. Take care. Bye bye. Greetings and welcome to the energy of Leo. This is Ron from Tarot of the Twin Sun. This is a prognosis for the month of September 2024. We're looking at a transit chart based on the 3rd of September and looking at the Leo ascendant. What is it activating in terms of the 3rd and moving on forward into the month? Because the month is lunar, we're focusing on basically the sun and the moon conjunct, which is a new moon energy, in the energy of Leo. In the energy of Virgo. What does this mean? Well, it activates your second house. So this is a time to sort of put strain and tension on your own resources, your own reality, okay? To sort of push the limit on your own sensibility, how to be practical in a time of great transformation and change, wherein the algorithms of the future, your visions, your great ambitions, the ambitions of the collective culture, in terms of a Mars conjunct Jupiter, loose conjunction, but still conjunction, stimulating your 11th house. So when it comes to dream making, your desires, your futures, your idea of what can help you, there's a time of transformation where on a collective level, the world is shifting and there's a lot that has to do with the grid. It's also like a very spiritual time where Saturn and Jupiter get in a square energy, and they're going to be there quite a bit for some time. Uranus is in retrograde in Taurus, which basically creates a very difficult sort of positioning in terms of your own path in relation to the collective energies of this transit. So to try to stabilize yourself and allocate your resources, your idea of a daily routine goes through under a type of transformation and goes through under great tutelage in a time of war and in a time of instability. Primarily, it's unstable, this type of energy on a globally economic level. So having to deal with your own resources, what you eat, how you work every day, is very much coming under duress, and there are things that are going to be highlighted in terms of that, and some rewards as well. Working with others is going to be very interesting. You're going to be finding that a lot of the soulmates that you draw in go through great transformation. But it's the transformation it's just before the transformation, Pluto in retrograde in your 7th house. So there's some sort of change if you aren't already in a committed relationship or in business partnership, something like that, and in a place of work. Something about those people that need to admit and to not be in denial of the great change that's going in terms of alignment towards a future way of doing things, okay? Once Uranus goes direct and gets out of Taurus, which is hopefully, hopefully within the next few years, there's going to be essentially an alleviation of the sort of financial crisis, stability in terms of that. Mercury, which is your dispositor for where the new moon is in Virgo, Mercury is 12 houses away. So something that on a collective level we can do, it stimulates your 1st house. You are able to sort of define yourself and align your body and your essence with your mind, okay, which stimulates the 1st house. So there's a lot. It has to do with independence, honoring the sun also during this time period will produce, honoring this new moon cycle will produce certain ways of paths of alleviation, especially with your resources, your time, your energy, and your money, all of that. Time is money sort of thing. There will be more of it for you to realign in some sort of way. So if you're dealing with situations or relationships with karmic partners, there's something about the transformation that goes on there where Plutus and Uranus in retrograde stimulate the 10th house and frees up certain amounts of karma. for the energy of Leo. Also, there is a lot has to do with transformation, and if you embrace the energy of Pisces and the North Node and Vesta, that's Neptune in retrograde, North Node, Vesta, conjunct in your 8th house, there's a chance to sort of figure out what the blocks are when it comes to your real ambitions, your real dreams. Also, when it comes to forms of social media, how to sort of reify or bring forward a clarity with the types of media you bring in, what you're ingesting from the world. Okay, so all this media about, especially in the previous month, about the Olympiad and like, you know, the perfection of like the body is very much highlighted in terms of the strength or the inner strength you can pull out with your own dreams and ambitions. There's a reflection there. And then the crisis in terms of the war, upcoming elections, all of this is very interesting. Primarily allows you to realign with the collective in order to produce certain relationships. Your relationships are going to be very key in terms of defining how to find balance with others in general, and how to go to transformation with them as opposed to against them. So there's a call towards brotherhood, towards sisterhood, towards working with others, towards working within the family unit, towards working within your own immediate environment and your closest social network. I'm not talking about like general social network, but I'm talking about your friends and your companions. And they will be a source of inspiration to go through the change and jump into the future. And yeah, also it's going to free up a lot of karma, a lot of collective energies with this Uranus in Taurus retrograde. So very interesting month. Hopefully that has somewhat come clear. I'm still recording this during Mercury retrograde, so it's really hard for me to deliver the clearest message, but always a challenge working with Leo. I find it hard to give the most proper prognosis for my Leos out there, but do wish you well. That is the monthly forecast. Stimulation primarily of your 2nd house. Be practical, be real, address obstacles, go through transformations with others. All of that is indicated in this chart. All right, hopefully that helps. Take care. Bye-bye. Greetings and welcome to my dear Virgoans out there. This is Ron from tarotofthetwinsun. I'm working through the YouTube platform, and we're doing a prognosis for the month of the 3rd, for the month of September. This is a transit reading on the day of the new moon. That's the 3rd of September 2024, and we're looking at the new moon's energy, which stimulates well, for one thing, a T-square. The new moon stimulates your 1st house, yes. It allows you to sort of go under the duress of this T-square and to reach out at the challenges that are there. So basically, there's a lot going on in terms of relationships, the structure of relationships. If you're dealing with a soulmate or a partner of some sort, or if you're working with others, most definitely is going to come under a certain amount of pressure and duress. Okay, and that actually is a good thing. It allows to free up and address certain things having to do with the 1st, 7th, and 10th houses. So when these houses are activated, there is an ability to work with others to free up certain blocks and karma and deal with things practically in a realistic way, and to help to define yourself through the new moon's energy. Your ruler, which is Mercury, is activating the 12th house, and it's pushing forward a 2nd house type of energy for you. So spiritual wealth comes in big time this month in the ability to reach these challenges, to address karmic situations with Mars conjunct Jupiter in the 10th house in Gemini. So there's something about what you can learn and gain from in terms of wealth. This wealth comes in the form of wisdom for this month. Okay, and the interesting thing is that when the moon goes full and there's an opposition between sun and moon in the 1st and 7th axis, there's an activation also of Saturn Okay, and it pushes forward further the square between Jupiter and Saturn, and later on in the month there's a chance for sort of weeding out relationships, weeding out anything that has to do with something that's not serving you in terms of your outer world. Okay, so there's this really need to assert yourself, especially with the way you think, and activation of the first house is uh, uh, sort of challenging the way you think in terms of the moon bringing a new seed and planting that in opposition to others. So it's not the best time to try to expect certain things from others, especially a structural way of doing things like on a global level or on a galactic level, on an interstellar level. A lot is going on and not much stability is being had for the time being. At the same time, there are gifts and they come through the second, fifth, seventh, and ninth houses. There's a possibility to sort of rely on your most practical way of doing things, health routines, your daily routines, your everyday, and that would bring forward a lot in terms of your stability, your private stability. There also is a trine formation that forms a great triangle, activating your second, fifth, and ninth houses, or your first, fifth, and ninth houses. The path of Dharma is something to do or relate to in terms of finding the stability you need, in terms of your own path work, okay? And because Dharma is found here in the triplicity of Earth, it's very important to honor Venus, Saturn, and Mercury. Venus, Saturn, and Mercury. So the way you relate to others has to find the stability of mind in order to provide the structure you need, okay? That is your path to Dharma in terms of this stimulation of cosmic triangle, the trine energy between Venus, Pluto in retrograde, and Uranus in retrograde. Now, because Uranus in retrograde is sort of affecting us all, it's a very difficult type of energy in sort of producing the right results that you seek. The mind will be a lot clearer this month. A lot more will be sort of found in the resonance of your body or your aura. So allow that to sort of plant the new seeds of consciousness within yourself, your physical routine, as well as your etheric body, your emotional body. All of those bodies need to sort of unite and be shown in the light in terms of this opposition to Saturn. So Saturn and Jupiter are not really sort of helping out in terms of dealing with others. The path of the hermit sort of envelops you, and you have to look towards the inner light in order to find Mercury's truth, okay? And that activates your 12th house. There's something about relationships being a very unstable, challenging period in terms of relationships. Focus on the fruits of wisdom that come through the second house, through like very stable modes of attaining money or time or commitments through others, or dealing with others in a way that produces just general lightness. Try to focus on that this month, on the lightness of things when it comes to relationships. But yeah, there we have it. It's not an easy month for a lot of people in terms especially of this new moon transit on the 3rd of September. Things will eventually change, hopefully. And yeah, that's what I have for my dear Virgoans out there. Wishing you well. Thank you. Bye-bye. Greetings and welcome to my dear Librans out there. Hello again. Thank God we're still here. So this is a prognosis for the month of September 2024, and it's for the energy of Libra naturally. What rules Libra? Venus. It's on your ascendant. There's something about this month and being graced with natural beauty, radiance, and gravity. The Greeks will say that gravity and fate are the same thing. Electromagnetism and fate are the same thing. And this is the time. This is the time for you. Excuse me for that. This is the time for basically great fortune and for Venus to bestow great wealth upon you through the divine feminine. Venus conjuncts Lilith, and Pars fortune. Okay, as well as the South Node. So when someone sees you, and by the way, you're going to be seen this month, there's something about the great opposition between the cardinal axis of air and fire that stimulates a great deal in terms of relationships. What you can gain from it is primarily freedom, creativity. Think of like the most free form expression during this time period. Okay, because your fifth house is basically activated, and there are blessings coming to the first house as well. Venus will bless you. I told you with Neptune, Pluto in retrograde in Capricorn. Okay, so the interesting thing is that there's this sort of window of opportunity where the collective karma of the collective, and this is a collective reading, generally speaking, Libra is activated in terms of finding themselves around this time, and also a great deal of wealth will be provided onto you, and that's just basically the wealth of looking good in the context of what's going on etherically in the skies, the cosmos. I chose the 3rd of September because the new moon is activating your 12th house. Okay, so there's a spiritual undertone to the work you put out there. And if your work is not aligned with the spiritualism that many do seek out at this time period, the T-square will not be honored. But still, somehow Mars will provide Venus, okay, with a way to challenge itself. So you look good under a time of conflict. You look good and cool, collected under a time of conflict. And this has to do with the higher mind as well, the elevation of Libra and service to others at this time period. The world will be going to shit, at least generally speaking, for a lot of people. With the with your 7th house creating a T-square between Jupiter, one of the great teachers, and the second great teacher is Saturn in retrograde. Okay, that's in your 6th house. So once again, you have to align yourself in terms of the seeds that you plant now. Make sure they're in direct opposition to any sort of structures that are going to fail, especially in terms of the context of your work. So anything that you need to leave in terms of your work behind, especially weeding out and perfecting, I would say perfecting a way of skill, a way of talent. The new moon in Virgo activates some sort of mystical path, mystical dimension that allows you to associate or disassociate with one guru or another. This is about influence, and this is influence in terms of the mystical path. So this is a specific opportunity that activates the 6th, 7th, 9th, and 12th houses, addresses a T-square, gives you a reward in terms of transformation. The transformation comes through the 8th house, Uranus in retrograde. And generally speaking, it's not a good thing that Uranus is retrograde combined with the energy of Taurus and the house of Taurus and the energy of the Taurus. Because Venus is not honored in terms of the chaos that's out there. But like I said, even though the world's going to shit, and there's conflict, and there's war, and there's economic starvation, I would say, it's like the entire world's in a fourth world, something like that. Not just a third world, a fourth world state of being. Okay, and because of such, there are certain friends that will come and provide the right sort of manas, the right sort of head state, okay, and produce the effective transformation for you. Okay, this is a creative time where you can address the gifts of Venus, in which you can express yourself in the most mundane interpretations in terms of like what you wear, your fashion sense, okay, your etiquette, how you carry yourself in public. But naturally also there's this radiant quality about you, once again, fate and gravitas. The Grecian way, the Hellenistic way of viewing Libra as an extreme extension of Aphrodite. And this is very much a blessing for you in the month of September, meaning that you're going to attract a great deal when it comes to the 2nd and 7th houses. Even the 2nd house, which is Taurus's energy, is very much afflicted by instability. Let's see here. So your ruler basically is going to be stimulated in terms of the second house away from the new moon. Any seeds you plant here will bear fruit in the future, especially seeds that have to do with relationships, business relationships, work relationships, and you will be seen and given the dignity and grace of divine feminine in order to receive what you will according to the Holy Grail. Okay? Now, because the Holy Grail always receives, for example. It receives content, receives information, and it holds it. It contains it very well, no matter how toxic that energy is, for example. So there's more. Let's see. Now, the great square between Mars and, Mars conjunct Jupiter and Saturn, okay, that is stimulated during this month, and has been in August, will sort of produce the effect of your 6th and 9th houses. Okay, so that's where the square is. So when it comes to work and work overseas, higher education, when it comes to finding the right teacher, once again, there's this weeding out process, especially with the old paradigm of the Piscean age. Look to the teacher that has the student within that's still learning. Even in their faults, will you find the great mystery. Okay, and this is like if you have words of advice from an advisor or someone who would help you on a spiritual realization, you can find it. But even in their weakness, can you find strength, sort of thing. That's the whole trade-off here, and that's something that can be learned here, at least in terms of wisdom. So this is also like two different men, for example, and I hate to bring politics into it, but Trump and Biden coming in, something like that. Even in the weakness of the Gemini, their duality, their mutability is there's potentially strength there. And I'm not leaning in one way or another in terms of the grand old party or the Dems, whatever. I don't care, to be honest. But generally speaking, Mars conjunct Jupiter accentuates the heightened possibility of the gateway of war, and comes in contention with the new moon. So something about resourcefulness does open this gateway, but it's not going to be a lasting one. Look to the transformation you find. Look to the creativity you can find in relationships, in creative relationships. It's going to be your best friend for now. All right. So hopefully it helps. Take care. Bye bye. Greetings and welcome to my dear Scorpios out there. Welcome to anyone who has any placement, sun, moon, ascendant, etc. Especially the ascendant in terms of Scorpio. Welcome. This is a prognosis for the month of September 2024, and we're focusing on a transit that's occurring on the 3rd of September. We're not going to animate this chart, but basically the new moon that's occurring on the 3rd will stimulate your 11th house primarily, and also bring to mind on a collective level your place in terms of working with others, transforming goals in terms of common aims, especially when it comes to survival instinct, the 8th house. And also the 6th house will be activated. 5th and 6th houses will be activated in terms of this this timing. So the new moon opposes your 5th, Saturn retrograde there. On a collective level, basically there's going to be an illumination of things about Saturn and Jupiter. Okay, the transformations of the two great teachers. And it stimulates something in you where you can find romances, you can find creative outputs that should help you to realign and to challenge, to meet conflict in terms of this new moon's energy placed on your ideals. Certain things will be impressed upon you, certain expectations around this timing in September that have to do with the drives and ambitions of humanity. okay? The collective ideal, how things should be in terms of kicking in a survival instinct, drive, or motivation, finding creative ways to transform your goals, your ambitions, your aspirations, especially through social media platforms, modes of technology, okay? With Virgo in the cusp of your 11th house, basically, the new moon, sun moon conjunct in the 11th basically promotes this, okay? So you have to tap into your creativity. Any blocks in terms of major transformation, okay, will be addressed here. And there's an ability for you to use technology, your skills, and your talents in order to seek out a new structure that is coming on the horizon. That's basically Saturn in retrograde, square Jupiter and Mars. So this is a time of, generally speaking, a lot of conflict for many people, not knowing what to do and addressing the sort of collective ideal, how to push forward essentially an agenda that is beneficial to all, that is somewhat spiritual, is based on the future, of new future coming in. What else? So your ruler, Mars, which is also embellished by Plutonic energy, and Pluto is in retrograde in Capricorn. There's something about the gifts of chaotic relationships, dealing with others in terms of their own problems, their own imbalances, and then you learning from them, you giving yourself a sense of private structure in order to promote some sort of spiritual realization. The gifts of Venus, Lilith, and the South Node in your 12th house stimulated. This promotes a kind of spiritual work or an ethic when it comes to creatively manifesting a way or a flow for things to be addressed, your skills, your talents, okay, especially when dealing with others. And it promotes a sense of wholeness, a stable mind, a stable inner world, okay, that comes in Pluto in retrograde in your 4th, and also Mars, okay? Now, because Mars is in Gemini conjunct Jupiter at this time period, basically there's something about the gifts that come to you from the spiritual plane, from the Akash, these realizations that also put a challenge into and reinforce in a way your need for privacy and solitude in order to find the gifts of Mars that come through the opening and the gateway of the divine doorway, the gateway of Gemini, the two pillars. So there's kind of a rite of passage here. It has to do with realignment of your personal work and how you identify with your personal work, how it resonates with you in terms of stabilizing your own inner world. So the possibility of liberation from the nonsense that the outside world puts upon you, these expectations of transformation, will come to head, and one thing or another, something has to give, sort of thing. It'd be best to focus on relationships that are truly not there but there. They're kind of in the distance, or they're shared within the astral plane, and talk with your guides, your spirits, and your masters in terms of that, but also with others who are tied to that type of grid, okay? Let's see here, Mars. So the rewards of Mars come through the auspices of Mercury. Mercury is currently in Leo, and it activates your 10th house, okay? 10th house is the outer world. It has to do with independence. Your independence becomes challenged by others and their need to stabilize somehow. Uranus in retrograde in Taurus is not a good thing. Generally speaking, Wheel of Fortune kind of goes upside down, but also pushes forward and changes things in terms of social understandings, working with others. There's a chance here to address to your mind and align to, especially with the way you work with others at this time period, and then sort of you go on this spiritual, deep sort of inner process, okay, that is very secret. It's very within yourself, and only the masters, or only people who are truly spiritual will understand this. Okay, so it's a challenging time, hard to find the right teachers, the right gurus, the right body of knowledge, but the gateways are there and they're being opened. And as soon as Jupiter and Saturn relinquish this square, which is being highly accentuated by the new moon on this date, on the 3rd of September, there will be a push forward in terms of your ability to manifest the holy trine here, that is activating your 4th, 7th, and 12th houses, 4th, 8th, and 12th houses, basically. So, generally speaking, it's a good time to ground yourself in terms of your spiritualism, practice a form of sadhana or meditation in order, or practice a discipline there, so that you can work with others in order to assess their problems or their traumas in relation to the outer world. Okay, so I think it's a fabulous time to go ahead and do that. This, of course, is just advice. I do wish you well. Thank you. Bye-bye. Greetings and welcome to my Sagittarians out there. This is Ron from tarotofthetwinsun. I'm working through the platform of YouTube in order to bring a prognosis for the energy of Sagittarius in the month of September 2024. I do welcome you to the channel and its content. Please take what you will of it. We have here a snapshot transit on the 3rd of September. I'm not going to be using animations, and with the 3rd of September there is a new moon activating the 10th house for Sagittarius, especially Sagittarius ascendants. Now with this new moon there is light. The moon becomes occulted, but there is light that sort of brings forward the energy of perfecting a way of doing things in terms of the 10th house. Now the 10th house is interesting because it's on a collective level, at least in terms of the world and the outer world. It has to do with karmas that are perfected, especially work. A lot of people outside are dealing with financial crisis or trying to find a way to become stabilized in terms of their daily routines, and it seems to be a common motif in terms of inflation, especially with the 7th house. Jupiter in Gemini conjunct Mars, and then that's squaring up to the energy of Saturn in your 4th house. So the 4th house, 7th house, and 10th house are being activated in terms of, well, primarily trying to work with others and the outer world in general. There's contention there, and it's kind of your job to sort of see the hidden blessing and all of that. Your privacy and your idea of working with others becomes challenged and sort of conflicted, at least for this month. And it's required that you work with the two teachers who they're positing basically a square energy on a collective level that stimulates your 4th, and that's Saturn retrograde in the energy of Pisces, and the 7th house, Jupiter conjunct Mars in your 7th house. So you may find that the actions of others are producing the effect of bringing light, their own karmas, their own paths, and how it sort of elicits a type of energy that is grounding, it's limiting, and it also is very much in conflict with the greater lesson at hand, okay? And this greater lesson has to do with dealing with others, trying to produce the effect of your own solemnity, of your own privacy, and that becoming interrupted by the opposition of this privacy, your own inner world, your home even, with the outer world. And there's this sort of inner-outer conflict that is very hard to reconcile on a collective level. There are gifts, however. For example, there is a possibility of relating to others and understanding their idea of starvation, their idea of imbalance when it comes to a practical way of finding comfort. You will share with this in a way and learn through specific relationships that go through the imbalance of Uranus in retrograde in Taurus on your descendant, okay? And that stimulates something of a creative or perhaps a visionary way of bringing forward something very rewarding in terms of financial or perhaps familiar investments within your community that can be seen further out. So social media becomes a really good sort of starting point to work on and to produce meeting other people, at least producing the spaces to meet other people to sort of address these problems of like basically instability when it comes to career, or perhaps working with others in general. So it's like kind of like it's not the teachers that teach you this lesson. The teachers will eventually grant you this lesson, this wisdom, this knowledge over time. It's not an easy time currently, and with Uranus in retrograde in the energy of Taurus, there's an ability to sort of find out a way of working with others that kind of produces the same effect of like kind of working from home or something like that. They're both the same idea, coming close to home. Your most immediate sort of comfort that you find there essentially will be stimulated by a very divine union of Venus, Lilith, and the South Node in the 11th house. Okay, so balance is coming into play as well. These retrograde planets, even though they're difficult to understand, will produce a lasting effect when they go direct and reward you with stimulating connections with others, ideals, being idealistic again as opposed to pessimistic, which is the general feeling with this activation of the new moon. So it's a very interesting time. It's very dualistic. You can sort of see it in many different ways, but generally speaking, the outside world is going to be in too much conflict to produce the sort of visions that you may be seeing with close friends when it comes to bringing, or relationships, when it comes to bringing that sort of stability in the long run in terms of your long-term goals. Okay, so generally speaking, it is a positive reading this month. Your main significator, which is Jupiter, is in the 7th house. It stimulates a sort of interesting effect where where you're going to find friends who will teach you lessons, but it's not like your everyday friend. It's not like something that you can see physically. It's something like a friend that, like your tribe, will wake up to the call, sort of thing. But even though you may not have met your tribe yet, or you may be searching for them, the mirror or the technology that's here in terms of relationships will stimulate some sort of action that pushes forward the idea of like working in an idealistic way, and almost a quixotic way, where you can take your ideals, your romanticisms, and run with it, your dreams, and run with it, and go quite far. And there will be rewards in the future. The biggest opposition I find is in the 4th and 10th house. So your privacy, as well as your idea of family, contention within the family home or your domicile, is going to be very intense. It's very much advised that you clean up your space, both physically, mentally, and spiritually, okay, and purify your temple or your altar, okay, and that's metaphorically but also literally. So hopefully that helps, and remember that an altar is a place of sacrifice. Anything that you bring into your home will essentially be consumed in some sort of way. That's like a sort of spiritual, capitalistic way of seeing it. So watch what you intake, and also make sure that everything is clean when it comes to it. Everything is pure when it comes to it. All right. Also, there are certain latent talents and skills that are coming through the 10th house. So when it comes to work and career, this time period, especially the 3rd of September and September in general, will bring forward. It's a very interesting sort of way to analyze your own psychology when it comes to work and career, and also align that with the infinite, with the spiritual good that comes through Saturn retrograde in the 4th house, activating moksha, liberation. Okay, it's very strange because it's like a mixture between like working spiritually or working materialistically. It's both. They both combine together here in the moon cycle. Okay, and that's until Pisces goes into full moon, or the full moon goes into Pisces. All right, so hopefully that helps. Take care. Bye-bye. Greetings and welcome to my dear Capricorns out there. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So this is a reading for the month of September 2024. My name is Ron from tarotofthetwinsun. Please take only what you will. So your ruler for this month, Saturn, is in retrograde. And a retrograded Saturn in the energy of Pisces stimulates your third house. Okay, especially for Capricorn ascendants at the first degree of Capricorn. And the third house is under duress. It comes under a T-square in opposition with the 6th house, 9th house. So 3, 6, and 9 are activated. 3, 6, and 9 are very spiritual numbers, kind of very intensely related to Nikola Tesla's work. There's a futurism about what's going on. Okay, it has to do with the abstractions of the Akash, Saturn in retrograde. So there's somewhat like old knowledge that it comes from friends. Somehow they will surprise you with this knowledge, and it will be illuminated by the opposition of the new moon in Virgo on the 3rd of September 2024. So listen to your friends, hear what they're not saying. Okay, hear what they're not saying as forms of wisdom and knowledge. A lot of what they say in terms of what's going on has to do with work or finances, instabilities in terms of that. Mars and Jupiter in conjunction in the energy of Gemini. So a lot of what you deal with in terms of work relations, especially with others, in terms of your own work and manifesting, there's like this hidden doorway that is behind what they say, what they do, what they act. And it's kind of a gateway to great knowledge, a great system of knowledge. The new moon on the 3rd activates the sun and moon conjunct in Virgo, okay? And that produces a very interesting effect. And the way we see that is with Mercury in your 8th house. There is a very mystical way to see what is unseen, to hear what is unheard, by paying attention to what is like almost like by not paying attention to everything that everyone says out there in terms of work or relationships or learning, teaching, getting knowledge, systems like that, artificial intelligences. It's what artificial intelligences don't say that is the true source of wisdom, and that's one of the challenging aspects here in terms of this new moon. There are certain things, certain types of information that are being freed up that allows for you to sort of glean wisdom and gain fortune, parse fortune on your ascendant. So it's kind of difficult because most people are going under difficulty in terms of the Zodiac and what's going on in terms of transits for this month that has to do with basic ideas, technologies, information, and the mind being projected out into the infinite and trying to figure out what to do in terms of an existential crisis. The two teachers, Jupiter in your 6th house and Saturn in your 3rd house, are being in conflict, a T-square, okay, combined with the 9th. So the new moon activates this, and it sort of brings to mind conflict, the potential of conflict, but also the other side to conflict, which is resolution, okay? So any resolution you find within your workplace, it's by you not saying much or thinking much, but by essentially honoring this weird way of receiving the knowledge by what is unsaid. Okay, so hopefully that kind of makes sense. There's also your ruler Saturn in retrograde in the 3rd. There's something about a friend who kind of needs help or needs time, and if you make the time there, you will be rewarded greatly. There's something about an activation here of your first and second cusp, as well as the 5th and 6th cusp, okay? Something about creatively working with at least one person in order to generate some sort of new path, okay? The 10th house. And I would say it's a woman. Venus, Lilith, and the South Node conjunct a woman from a past life type of energy who's here to free up and balance out karmic accounts and provide for Capricorns a great deal in terms of the cosmic triangle, okay, the quantum triangle, if you will, that's emerging from this chart. Okay, and it definitely stimulates the triplicity of Earth, but also a futurism, something like stability that comes out of Earth, that comes out of sort of the right path that emerges through the shepherdess. Okay, and she's here by the shepherdess, who is the high priestess. She's here essentially to give you the wisdom without saying much at all. A lot of what is unsaid will be the truest form here, especially post Mercury retrograde, okay, after August. So September is going to be very interesting. It will allow for an alignment of a path that is very grounding, okay, and it's defined through this weird retrograde energy of Pluto and Uranus, which are about transformation. It's about war, especially when it comes to relating to others, familiar people, familiar voices of the past, hidden knowledges, space in terms of that, all of that coming into head. And one of the biggest challenges is your 3rd and 9th axis. The new moon will produce the effect that you need to be more realistic, something like that. But then it's also something where it's like your ability to go and seek out perfection, your ability to go seek out a skill talent or skill set will come naturally over time and without much said. A lot of it will be psychically activated, okay, through the 9th house. So hopefully that's a bit of a primer for the month. I do wish you well. Thank you for following Tarot of the Twin Sun and all of that. I do thank you. All right, bye-bye.